here I have some of the most well-known, oldest philosophy books that are constantly talked about. We're going to talk about if they're actually good, if they're worth reading, what I liked about them, some interesting ideas, and hopefully give you a kind of feeling out of if these are books that you should read, if these are books that you should pick up. A few of them I would say are must reads, but some of them you take it or leave it. That first one is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This is basically Marcus Aurelius' journal. It's him telling himself what he must do. It's him being gracious and thankful for the things that he's been blessed with. It's interesting because it's not written in the format of a book. It's written in the format of Marcus making sure that he keeps these things in mind. And it kind of shows in some sections. It kind of doesn't read like a book. It kind of reads like a manual. And in a certain sense, I think that takes away from the book, but in a certain sense, I think it adds to it. There's a reason why it's the most popular philosophy book today. It's because it's so simple, because it's so basic, it's because it's so universal and digestible for everyone. But I think it lacks the oomph. I think it lacks the depth. I think it doesn't hit at the same levels of other philosophy books that I've read, and I'm not really sold on Stoicism myself, so that's a lot of it when I talk about this book. There's also an element of me that anytime something's extremely popular, I'm going to find fault in it. So there's a reason of that as well. But if you like this book, I think you should also pick up Seneca, because I think Seneca is a better Stoic philosopher than Marcus Aurelius. But overall, it's a good book. It talks about following the middle path. It talks about not being too high, not being too low. It talks about gratitude. It talks about the importance of reframing things in your mind and really rationalizing things and making sure that nothing can bother you. It's like the idea Osho says of people can only insult you if you allow them to. This is really the idea of Stoicism. And I think that alone is a very interesting idea. And I think Stoicism is a really good place to start when it comes to philosophy. Very simple, very easy to read, and it's something that you'll take a lot from. But I just don't rank it super high in the books of philosophy that I've read. But you might like it. It's definitely something worth reading. It's definitely something that you should read at least once in your life. And yeah, with that said, let's get into the next one. The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. The Prince is sort of a philosophy. It's really a political philosophy book, and it's about what it takes to be a good ruler. The historical context of this book is basically Machiavelli was exiled by the Medici family, and basically he wrote this book as a gift to get back in their good graces. But there's some speculation if this was satirical, if this was serious, if he was writing a book as a guide for the princes, or he was writing a book to make fun of them. And I think that puts an interesting twist on it. But basically, the overall philosophy of the book is you must put the interest of the states above everything. You must put the interest of your nation before public opinion, before your own morality, because that's what a good ruler must do. A good ruler must weigh out the decisions and always do what's best for the state. And I think you could break down this philosophy in one simple phrase: it's better to be feared than loved, but not hated. And I think that's a really interesting thing to understand, because think of politicians. They very rarely do anything that makes them universally hated. They like to be loved, but they also want to be feared. And I think when you see some of the greatest rulers throughout history, some of the most renowned rulers, they all embody this characteristic. Some of the interesting facets of this book talk about Alexander the Great and how he had some of the best counsel around him, how he had people in his ear giving him the right decisions to make, how when he conquered a territory, he basically allowed the people to be as they were before, had similar taxes, maybe even lowered them at some point, and allowed them to practice their religion, really embracing their culture, really embracing what it meant to be a citizen of that state. And because of this, the citizens wanted to stay under his rule. And I think it's a very interesting book. I wouldn't say it's a must read. I wouldn't say it's something that you have to pick up at any point, but it is a fun read. It's very short. It's like 90 pages, and once you read it, you can say you've read it. That's really the greatest part about The Prince. And I don't know how much practicality there is unless you're a CEO or a aspiring politician, but aside from that, it's just an interesting book. Maybe worth reading at some point, maybe not. But again, I like reading for fun. It's something I love doing. So I'm going to read it. You don't have to. It's not a book that I would say is required. It's not a book that is going to give you any life-changing advice, but fun read. The next one is The Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. And this book is interesting because it's really a guide to being a great swordsman, but it's really what at the heart of it, it's finding yourself. It's finding more. It's finding purpose. It's finding meaning. It's finding what it is that you're looking for in this world. And the Book of Five Rings it's weird because it follows the four elements and then the void, which is very similar to some Western esoteric ideas, but we're not going to get too deep in that. But really, what's interesting about this book is it talks about strategy, but it also talks about life. Because Miyamoto Musashi at some point says, once you know the way, you see it in all things. And basically what he's saying is when you master one art, it means you can master another. When you understand one thing, it gives you like a spiritual enlightenment that carries over to the rest of your life. Think of somebody that's an expert at one thing. They can talk about a lot of other subjects. They have insights to the rest of the world simply because they mastered one art. And that's something I feel like is missing today. I feel like people don't really take any sort of appreciation for their craft. They don't really cultivate their skills, and they're more expert generalists. They're more experts in everything and not one thing. Jack of all trades, master of none. That's really what I'm trying to say here. But it's an interesting book, and it's very, very short. I think it's around, of course this book doesn't have page numbers. It's around 50 pages. It's in public domain, so you can get a copy for very cheap like I did. You could tell that someone literally just threw this together and is selling it on Amazon. But don't let that discourage you from reading a good book, because it's a very quick read. It's something that you'll find a lot of information from, and I think it has a few really interesting ideas that are going to move you to a very strong degree. And I think this is a book that really got me into reading because, of course, I pick a book about samurai. Of course, I pick a book about fighting, but I gained an appreciation for philosophy. So with that said, pick up this book. Very short, very worth the read, and very insightful. The last one is The Art of War, written by Sun Tzu. What I would say about this book is it's interesting. I don't know how applicable it is to your life. I don't know how useful it will be for you. It's required reading for all Japanese businessmen, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why Japanese businessmen have to read it, but there's like some maybe it's Chinese. Maybe I'm wrong. I know yeah, I'm definitely wrong about it. It's definitely Chinese because this book was written by a Chinese general. But anyway, like a lot of leaders throughout the world have read this. A lot of businessmen, a lot of CEO, a lot of people in general have read this book, and they seem to think it has some carryover to life. I think in certain regards it does, because there's a basic strategy of don't attack your enemy when they're strong. Allow an enemy to attack you so that they expose themselves, because when you go on the offensive, you are inherently allowing someone to see the chink in your armor. Like, think, if I bait you for a check hook, I'm going to get the check hook because I made you extend that way. And that's really the idea of it. It's like, don't fight an enemy when they're strong. Always fight an enemy when they're weak. Always use your advantages. Always manipulate the circumstances to find an advantage. And I think it's one of those books that you'll read very fast. It's one of those books that you'll get through very, very quickly. I don't know how much applicability it has to your life. I don't know how much it can really offer you, but it's always a fun read. And it's similar to The Prince in the sense that it's a general strategy book that has inspired generations of historical leaders, of figures, and all sorts of individuals for all different sorts of walks of life. So if that's something that interests you, it's definitely an interesting book. It's definitely worth the read. It's very poetic. It's not at all what you would think about a strategy book. It does have some expression. It does have some symbolism and reading between the lines. But again, not a necessary read. Not something that's going to bring you enlightenment instantly. But it's a very fun read. With that said, I think these books are all fairly good uses of your time. But the one I would really recommend you read is The Book of Five Rings, because I think it's the best out of all of these. But again, it's up to you to pick out what you want. Love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.